Hello DevOps people, I'm Jochen, welcome to my live coding stream. It's Tuesday again, and I'd like to continue working on my open source software named Jupyter. I've basically started Jupyter especially and specifically for this coding stream. So I have a project that I can wrap my head around and that I can publish, where you are able to see what I'm doing, and you are also able to clone the repository and see my actual commits and my progress on the app. The app is supposed to do something in the IT space, namely manage IT resources, be it bare metal servers with their peripherals and things like that, or cloud instances like EC2 instances, or their attached EBS storage volumes, or DigitalOcean droplets. All these things tend to pile up quite quickly, especially if you provision them automatically. And so what I'm going to do is build an application that is able to catalog and manage all these IT resources. So my long-term goal is to make it a software that's able to show you what computing and storage and networking resources you have, and even being able to automatically provision additional stuff. So you can add a new DigitalOcean droplet, add a new EC2 instance, or even add a new hardware server like you get at Packet or Hetzner. So that's the context of this stream, and as always, you're highly invited to join me in the chat. I love the exchange, and I highly enjoy if you take part in an active way. Last time, recently, I, for example, learned that I can resolve a lot of Rubocop warnings by launching it with Rubocop-A. I didn't know the auto-repair option, and that tip from you, the viewers, saved me a lot of time. So I'm highly grateful for each and every one of you who jumps into the chat and does a little bit of work with me here. Okay. Why is the stream not updating here? Okay, that's better. I was afraid that I was talking to my screen here. Alright, so here's the Jupyter repository. It's on github/gvis/Jupyter. It's a Ruby on Rails application, and it'll be the central piece of the application. There might be local clients for inventory or things like that in the future, but one step at a time. So, let's take a look at the state of things. I've built a development environment that allows me that I simply spin up all the necessary services I need by running Docker Compose up. At the moment, that's a Postgres database, a Redis database that isn't used yet, and the application container itself. which should launch in a second if everything is okay. And I've built a number of models that I'm going to use to represent all our IT components. Maybe I should have named it component. I'll have to think about that. Naming is hard, isn't it? Oh, here's the application container as well. That's running on port 3000 in the container, and this port is actually forwarded to my host, so I should be able to access localhost 3000 and get a response, even though the response isn't good. Okay, so for some reason the database hasn't been initialized yet. That shouldn't be a problem. I can run docker compose exec app. So run the following command in my application container: bundle exec rails db migrate reset and db seed to get some data to play with. And I do the same without the seed step for the test database as well. So Rails env test for the test environment. I've cleaned up a few containers recently, and so that's why they got started fresh now. So that should do the trick. I should be able to... Should I? Did I even create a user? That should be the first thing that I do. Let's take a look at our seed file. I think I'm creating only resources, but no users. Okay, so let's start by creating a new user. User create and users. Have an email and a password, an encrypted password, but I should be able to create one with the password attribute, I think. So email, I take admin@example.com, password admin 123. Always use secure passwords that are a mix of letters and numbers. So admin 123 certainly is a very secure password. I hope you know I'm kidding. Use one password and auto-generate each and every password you use. Boom! I think that's the problem, that now the database is in access, so a migrate reset can't drop the database while there are connections to the database. So what I have to do is use my newly created rake task that shuts down the application container, runs its own application container for the migration, and then spins up the application container again. And it's called... Oh, actually it didn't appear in -t for some reason. So let me look up how it's actually named here. It's Docker DB reset. Docker DB reset. No idea why it doesn't appear here. I didn't take the time of tracking this down. So how is everyone out there? The weather here in Ireland is terrible at the moment. It's raining cats and dogs, and I'll definitely not leave the house again today. Doing a live coding stream is probably the best thing to do at this time. Have your heater on and a little bit of music and a few nice people to talk to, and the day is saved. And have something hot to drink. In my case, it's a cup of tea. Do you have any favorite coding beverages? Default coffee, or do you rather drink tea, water, Mountain Dew? What's your favorite drink? Let me know. Okay, now we have successfully created everything, and it actually did create a user. Did also not complain about password, so I think I should be fine logging in as admin at example.com and admin123. No, I won't save this in one password. Okay, that's fine. That's great. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is create a few views that actually display some data. My problem is that I don't have an actual product owner, or that I am the product owner, and unfortunately the product owner doesn't have a very thought through idea of what this app is going to do or should be able to do, and so that's why I need a bit of I need to do a bit of exploring and play with stuff a bit to get an idea of how things should be designed and worked. So we'll do a little bit of explorative coding today. Since I already have a few resources in my database, I can simply create a few lists and single item views that display stuff, and then maybe the inspiration will tickle me a bit. Let's do a poll on the naming. Do you think resource is too generic? Should I use component? So we'll have components, component types, component type attributes, and component attributes. Sounds better in my head, to be honest, but I'd be curious what you think. Okay, so I'll still continue working with resource for the time being, but I think I'll have to make this decision quite quickly, so the number of stuff I'll have to rename stays as low as possible. But until then, I'll simply go ahead and take a look at the views which my scaffolding commands have created automatically. So there should be a resource index file that already lists a few things. So I guess I can simply go into my start page view, or home page view here, and link these controllers here. So what I can do is do something like this. Resources, I think. Oh, nice. Okay. It does display the resource type as well, because that's part of the original definition, and since the resource type is not a simple data type, this isn't the best thing that we can display here. I will simply use the resource type's name, I guess. So we'll change this here, resource type name. This is not a violation of the law of Demeter yet, because we have our resource, we'll get the resource type attribute, and it's okay to know that what resource types can do. Only if we'd add another period and go down into the object tree, that would be a violation of the law of Demeter, which doesn't allow us to go deeper than one level into a object hierarchy. Okay, that should do the trick. So it should show that we are dealing with a droplet here. Nice. And we can show it. We'll have to do the same change here as well. So not a lot of stuff to change or to see here, but still is pretty nice. What we should do is go into the resource, in the single resource view, and not only fix the resource type, but also list the resource attributes. That should be easy to do as well. So resource type name, and then we'll do a section for the attributes. And we'll go to resource attributes, or is it resource attributes? do attribute, and then we'll display the attribute name. Which I can't do directly because a resource attribute has only two associations, so we'll need the resource type attribute name. And now we are violating the law of Demeter, because we started with the resource, and we do know resources have attributes. That's fine. And an attribute even might have a resource type attribute, but then knowing and using the fact that this one in turn has a name attribute can cause all kinds of stuff. It makes the code less maintainable because we can't change how a resource type attribute is built. Now it's more or less fixed that it has to have a name attribute, and that's one less degree of freedom, so to say. And so what we should do is work with a virtual attribute, resource type attribute name, which should be part of the interface of the resource attribute. And we can do that by simply delegating this downwards. So we have a resource attribute. Oh, we already did that. Okay, brilliant. So here is the delegation. We'll delegate the name attribute to resource type attribute. We'll keep the class name as a prefix, so the resulting full name will be resource type attribute name. And that's why we can use this here. And so the other thing is that it has a value. So we should be able to display this as simply as attribute value. And that should do it. And here we need to, I guess I should watch out for my indentation. We can end the loop. So that should be indented and that should be indented as well. Let's see if this works. Brilliant. So we have a resource type droplet, and this resource droplet London has two attributes: data center location, which is in London, and the memory size, which is 4 GB. We could format this a little bit nicer by making it a table. Since that's easy to do, I'll go ahead and do it. Otherwise, that's something I'd do off stream if it's just nice to have stuff. We have a table row here, and we'll make this table data. That should be it already. Yeah, this looks a bit nicer. Spacing isn't too great with the heading here having more distance to its own section than to the data above, but that's front-end design, and I won't go too deep into this at this time of the project. Okay, good. So we should be able to make this resource type a name or a link. So we could link to resource type path. That way we should be able to, oops, it points to resources. That's not right. That's strange. We should be able to call it with a name. Oh, that's actually the path resource types, and then it says droplet.1, and it points to resources 1. Oh, it points to the page I'm on. What the heck am I doing wrong here? Link to string. And then okay, I'll have to, okay, yeah, of course. This is an argument of link to, and then I'll have to create the URL using resource type path. Makes more sense. And now I should be able to click on droplet, and I'll see that it has a provider, and by fixing this with provider name in the resource type, let's see, okay, a droplet is something we get from DigitalOcean. Let's extend our homepage with a few more quick links. Resource types. I have the droplet here, and let's fix the provider name here as well. And resource type attributes doesn't work. Undefined method resource. No, a resource type attribute can't have a resource. That doesn't make sense. A resource type attribute belongs to a resource type and has many resource attributes. Yeah. So let me see, resource type. Where do we get the error? It's the resource type attributes. Well, they should be listed under the resource type anyway. But so that should fix this view at least. Data center location, memory size. And it belongs to a resource type, and that's what I could actually display here, resource type name. There is no resource type name. You can fix this by delegating the name attribute. So we get by by setting prefix to true, we get a virtual attribute resource type name with underscores, which we can use here. But I'm missing a 2 here. So these are both attributes of the type droplet, that's fine. We need to fix the show view as well. Resource type name. should be listed below each type here on the details page. So we don't need, I don't think we need the link on the home page. Instead, we go to the resource type, into the details view, and create a table just as I did here. It's very similar because the resource type is the abstract version of the actual resource. So a resource can have all the resource attributes that are listed as resource type attributes for the resource type of the resource. Is your head spinning already? Here we go. And I'll use resource type attributes. And we keep the attribute name here, and the attribute has its own resource type attribute name, but no value. It has an actual name, I think. Yeah, a droplet provided by DigitalOcean can have a data center location and a memory size. Okay. Do we already have types in there, or value types? Does a resource type attribute actually have? No, it doesn't. It only has a provider and a name. Resource type attribute, so it has a name and a resource type. Yeah, in the future we'll probably add something like a value type field in here that tells us, for example, the data center location is a string, but the memory size is a positive integer. Okay, things are getting more interesting now. At least we see something here. I can also add a new resource, EC2 instance resource type. Oh, no, not a resource, we need a resource type, EC2 instance. But the provider should be something we'll pick out from the existing providers. And we should have a providers link here. Right at the start. Providers. And at the moment we only have DigitalOcean, but I can add a new provider. AWS. Nice. And we could add a resource type. How does this work with the... Okay. Yeah, I can't enter an object ID here, that's not possible. So we probably need some additional coding here for the forms. But at least I can well, okay. That's not bad. So I'd like to commit these changes. And since they are very minor, I'll commit them right to master. Normally I'd create an issue on GitHub, create a branch that references this issue, and then merge that branch, but since we've already done our coding here, we should be fine. But before I commit and push that stuff, let's run a test. And I think if we don't have one already, we need a... Oh, no. That's not what I wanted to start. I wanted to start Visual Studio. Let me think. Break file. Okay, we have the default task with the test suite, so we can simply run docker compose exec app bundle exec break, and that's going to run all the tests we need. And if they are all green, I'll commit and push that stuff. Come on. Oops. Okay. Lots of pending checks. I should take a look at that as well. We just need to use add a few hashes here, I think, so that these controller tests can run as well. Let me see, spec controllers resource. Spec controllers resources controller. Okay, interesting. Okay, so we already have here, we have the warnings of Rails best practices for my law of Demeter violations in the resource types and in the resources. And let's see if I can reduce the number of pending spec tests here. But so let's take a look. Resources index 18 and show 10. Resources index 13, yeah, resource type dot name already is not okay, so we can use resource type name. And now we actually have failures here. I can't pass in a completely empty hash. Let's leave the skip statement in here for a second. Looks like it will still fail. Resource type must exist. And that's where I start disliking these auto-generated tests, because I'm not sure if they actually help with setting up tests here. I really dislike the let statement in general, because it basically causes an unexpected guest issue where we are using stuff like valid session or valid attributes here, and we can't actually tell where this comes from. We can simply scroll up and see this, but let even allows redefinition of these names, so we might even have two locations where this is defined, and then the fun is really starting. So I guess it'll be much better creating local attributes here, and even using factory bot to create these resources instead of creating them via active record here, or active model. But that's something I'll probably do off stream, because that's really, really boring. So let's simply restore the file how it was and close it. I can live with the skips for the time being. Oops, sorry for that. Just checked if the YouTube stream actually works. Seems to be pretty much behind. That's strange. my suspicion is that inside the Docker container, Spring or Bootstrap, no, it's not called Bootstrap, it's, what's it called, Boot Snap, don't actually work effectively. Okay, we have another law of Demeter violation in resource types. I forgot about that. Resource types. So we can't use provider name. We have to use provider underscore name, I guess. Line 18, yep. And in show line 10, it'll probably be the same field. Yep. So in resource type, to delegate name to provider. I'm using the class name provider as a prefix. This should resolve the warning, and we should be okay. I really wonder why Robocop takes that long to even start checking. It's running inside the Docker container, so it can't be a storage performance issue between my workstation and the Docker container. But takes ages to check 41 files. Let's hope that Rails best practices will be happy with my code so we can actually commit this. Oh, good. Breakman shouldn't have any issues because we are not doing anything sophisticated at the moment. Let's see. Okay, so I'll commit this as add /fix basic views. Not much to elaborate here, to be honest. Okay. With that done, I wonder how we could proceed here. I do have a few more GitHub issues that I should tackle eventually. There are two CI systems that I'd like to integrate. Travis CI to run my test suite, and Inch CI is something that I've only discovered recently and haven't haven't taken a closer look yet. It's a continuous integration system, especially for documentation. And since I'm building an open source project, I'd like to have a good documentation so that people can actually pick up the app and make use of it. So InchCI seemed to be a nice option here, especially since it was free, I think. And then probably more sooner than later, I'd like to actually deploy the application in a staging environment and finally into a production environment. As soon as I've actually integrated some kind of API access here that allows me to pull in actual data center information, I'd like my IT resources to be managed by Jupyter, and so I'll need some way to continuously deploy the application to our Kubernetes cluster. Once in a staging environment and twice then in the production environment. That'll also allow me to demonstrate a few workflows, how to work with an application that is already in production, how to do deployments based on CI results and stuff like that. But we are still a bit away from this stage, I guess. We could probably use a few milestones as well. Don't have any at the moment. And I'm actually not sure how to proceed, how to push this forward. I guess I pick up a thought that I had last time, that I'll actually go and integrate an API so I can pull in information from one or two providers and then start working with that. That'll give me enough data to populate my resource type attributes and things like that. Yeah, I think that's something I'd like to do. I'll probably start by integrating the Hetzner API on Thursday, because since we only have about half an hour left of my scheduled time, I'm not going to start this today. Otherwise I'd have to think about this twice. For the second time when I pick it up on Thursday. So I'll rather postpone this until Thursday anyway. So we'll build an API integration that allows us to slurp in existing data and store it as resources and associated models in our database. That'll give me enough to do and a bit of an opportunity to start with test-driven development. So far I haven't bothered with doing test-driven development because there wasn't much to test. Even my basic initial models here are so simple that I didn't think they'll require any tests at the moment. I don't even have validations in here, I just realized. So that's something I'll probably need as well. But it'll all materialize as soon as we have a bit more real-world data to play with. So I guess I'll stop coding a bit early today. And just lean back, and if you like, we can have a little chat. I guess what I really should do is mirror my camera so that I actually look at my code as I'm actually doing. Let me see if I can fix this. Here we go. Now you can actually see that I'm looking at the code and not at the wall. Sometimes I think I should stream in the morning when I still have a bit of a fresh brain. But work requires a fresh brain as well, so I stay on the afternoon probably. So guys, if you had a management software that allows you to track IT resources like servers, EC2 instances and stuff like that, what would you do? What would you want to do with that? What should it provide? What should be functionality to make your day a little bit better? Is this an itch that you'd like to scratch, or do you just not have this problem? I'm 70% sure that I'll rename resources into components, because not only is it a bit more specific, not much, but at least a little bit, but second, it doesn't clash with the resource name that's used by Rails's routes file. And resources colon resources really looks stupid. Resources colon components is much more readable. So that's something that I'll do off stream probably, because that's just a lot of busy work. I'll add a few migrations that rename the tables, and I'll rename a few files and directories, and that should do the trick, I guess. And at this stage, it's not too much stuff to replace here. The sooner the better. So if I can pull in a few servers. And maybe a few details on these servers. I might even be able to replace the data centers UI with my own, with a few things like being able to reboot servers. Huh. I could start by actually emulating our data centers UI and replacing that with my own as a type of proxy, because it'll simply forward all the things I'm doing on Jupyter to the data center anyway. But that's a nice short-term goal. That could be a milestone. Being able to see all our servers and be able to reboot them, get a bit of information. Yep, that sounds like something I should be able to achieve over the coming few weeks. Okay, I guess that's something I'll think about until Thursday, and I promise I'll be back with a bit of a roadmap, at least with a thorough plan what I'm going to do on Thursday, and I guess it'll have to do with API coding, so lots of stuff to do. For today, I guess I'll leave it at that, and if you don't have anything you'd like to talk about, I'll call it a day. He says, watching his chat window full of hope. Well then, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I've streamed this simultaneously to Twitch and YouTube, so I don't know if anyone watched over YouTube, but it'll enable me to quickly post the recording of this session to YouTube. If you liked what I did, please follow the Twitch stream or subscribe to the YouTube channel. Especially subscribing to the YouTube channel will help me get my own channel name, and so I'll appreciate that very much. Thanks for being here with me. I'll be back on Thursday at the same time, 3:30 British Standard Time or 4:30 Central European Time, and until then, take care.